The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. Marcus stood there, frozen, watching his boss's face twist into that familiar smirk. The same smirk he'd seen 1,000 times before. But this time was different. This time, everyone was watching. His hands trembled at his sides, not from fear, from something else entirely. Something that had been building inside him for months, maybe years. Something that finally snapped. The warehouse had gone completely silent. 37 people. He'd counted them without meaning to. 37 witnesses to what was about to become either his biggest mistake or his finest moment. The loading dock doors were open behind him, letting in the cold November air that cut through his company polo shirt. He could smell the rain on the concrete, mixing with the scent of cardboard and diesel exhaust. "You're done here," his boss had said. Those 3 words. So simple. So devastating. So public. But Marcus didn't move. He didn't run. He didn't break down. Instead, he reached into his pocket. Slowly. Deliberately. His fingers found what he was looking for. The thing he'd been carrying for weeks, just in case. Just in case it came to this. His boss didn't know it yet. Nobody did. But everything was about to change. See, there's a moment in every person's life when you have to decide who you're going to be. Are you going to be the one who takes it? Who swallows the humiliation, packs up their dignity, and walks away? Or are you going to be the one who stands up? Who says enough? Who finally shows everyone what you're really made of? Marcus had spent 6 years being the first kind of person. 6 years of "yes, sir," and "right away," and "sorry, my fault." 6 years of watching mediocre people climb over him because he was too polite, too professional, too afraid to rock the boat. 6 years of going home with his jaw clenched so tight he'd wake up with headaches. But something changes in you when you realize you have nothing left to lose. The thing about revenge is that most people think it's about anger, about rage, about making someone hurt the way they hurt you. But that's not it at all. Real revenge, the kind that actually matters, isn't hot. It's cold. It's calculated. It's waiting for exactly the right moment to show everyone who the real monster is. Marcus had been waiting for that moment for a long time. His boss was still talking, still performing for the crowd, still convinced he was in control. He had no idea that the ground was already crumbling beneath his feet. No idea that Marcus had stopped being a victim the moment he decided to start paying attention, to start documenting, to start building a case that would end him. "Did you hear me?" his boss snapped. "I said you're done. Pack your stuff and get out." The warehouse was so quiet you could hear the rain starting to pick up outside. Someone coughed. A forklift beeped in the distance. Normal sounds in an absolutely abnormal moment. Marcus looked at his boss, really looked at him, and for the first time in 6 years, he smiled. "Actually," Marcus said, his voice steady and clear and carrying across the entire warehouse, "I don't think I am. Before we continue, if you've ever dealt with an annoying boss like this, subscribe to the channel. Because what happens next is something you're going to want to remember." 6 years earlier, Marcus had walked into Patterson Logistics with hope in his chest and a recommendation letter in his hand. The warehouse was massive, stretching the length of 3 football fields, filled with endless rows of steel shelving that reached up toward the distant ceiling. Packages of every size, products from 100 different companies, all waiting to be sorted, scanned, and shipped to their final destinations. It was just supposed to be temporary, a stepping stone. Get some experience in supply chain management, work his way up, maybe move into operations or planning. He had a degree in business administration. He had ambition. He had a plan. What he didn't have was any idea who Daniel Reeves really was. Daniel was the shift supervisor. Mid-40s, thinning hair he combed over in a way that fooled absolutely nobody. Always wearing polo shirts, one size too small, to show off arms that had been muscular maybe 20 years ago. He had this way of standing with his hands on his hips, chest puffed out, like he was a general surveying his troops instead of a middle manager at a third-rate logistics company. The first week, Daniel seemed fine, professional, almost friendly. He showed Marcus the ropes, explained the systems, introduced him to the team. Marcus remembered thinking he'd gotten lucky with his supervisor. The second week, things started to shift. It started small. Daniel asking Marcus to stay late to finish a project, then taking full credit for it in the morning meeting. Marcus letting it slide because he was new, because he didn't want to make waves. Daniel interrupting Marcus mid-sentence during team briefings to clarify what Marcus was trying to say, always making it sound like Marcus didn't quite understand the point. Marcus staying quiet because confrontation wasn't worth it. Then it became routine. Every morning, Marcus clocked in at 6 a.m. The warehouse was always cold at that hour, the heating system too old and too weak to fight off the Michigan winter. He'd grab his scanner, check his assignment board, and start the endless process of moving product from point A to point B. Scan, lift, load, repeat. Thousands of times a day. Daniel would roll in around 7:30. Never 6. Never on time with the rest of the shift. But somehow, he was never written up for it. Never questioned. He'd walk through the warehouse with his coffee, making his rounds, stopping to chat with certain people while completely ignoring others. Marcus quickly figured out which category he fell into. The actual work wasn't the problem. Marcus didn't mind physical labor. He'd grown up working summers at his uncle's construction company. He understood the value of hard work, of doing things right, of taking pride in the job even when the job wasn't glamorous. What got to him was the constant undercurrent of disrespect. Daniel had this thing he did where he'd assign Marcus the worst jobs on the shift. Not just hard jobs, the degrading ones. Cleaning out the dock bay bathrooms when someone on second shift had left them destroyed. Organizing the hazmat storage area, which meant spending hours in a cramped, poorly ventilated room surrounded by chemical smell and warning labels. Sorting through damaged goods returns, opening boxes of products that had been returned because they were broken, leaked, or worse. And the thing was, Daniel would assign these jobs with a smile. "Hey, Marcus, need you to handle something for me." Always phrased like a favor. Always delivered with that tone that made it clear this wasn't a request. The other guys on the shift noticed. Some of them anyway. Tommy, who ran the forklift, would shake his head when Daniel walked away. Lisa, who worked receiving, once asked Marcus why he let Daniel treat him like that. But what was he supposed to say? What was he supposed to do? Go to HR and complain that his boss gave him crappy assignments? That would go nowhere. It would just make everything worse. So Marcus kept his head down and did the work. He became the guy you could count on. The one who'd stay late when shipments ran behind. The one who'd cover shifts when someone called out sick. The one who knew every system, every process, every workaround when the computers went down or the scanners malfunctioned. If this feels familiar, hit the like button. And here's the thing that really burned. Marcus was good at his job. Really good. He started noticing patterns in the shipping data. Ways they could optimize routes, reduce handling time, cut down on errors. He put together a whole proposal, spent his own time building spreadsheets and charts, showing how they could improve efficiency by 15%. He gave it to Daniel, excited, proud, thinking maybe this would be his breakthrough moment. Daniel looked it over for maybe 30 seconds. "I'll take a look at this." Dismissive. Barely interested. 2 weeks later, in the regional meeting, Daniel presented Marcus's exact proposal as his own idea. Word for word, chart for chart. Got a round of applause from the district manager. Got a mention in the company newsletter. Got a bonus. Marcus found out about it from Lisa, who'd heard it from someone in accounting. He confronted Daniel about it that same afternoon, trying to keep his voice level, trying to stay professional. Daniel had leaned back in his office chair, arms crossed, that smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "You work for me, Marcus. Everything you do falls under my supervision. That's how chain of command works. Maybe they didn't teach you that in your business classes." That was the first time Marcus really understood who he was dealing with. Not just a bad boss, an actual predator. Someone who saw other people as resources to be used up and thrown away. But Marcus still stayed, still showed up every morning, still did his job, because that's what you do, right? You don't quit just because your boss is terrible. You push through. You outlast them. Eventually, they'll move on or get promoted or screw up badly enough that someone notices. The thing about being systematically broken down is that it doesn't happen all at once. It's not one big traumatic event. It's 1,000 small cuts. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, they call it. And Marcus was bleeding out so slowly, he almost didn't notice it was happening. It was the way Daniel would call him into the office for performance reviews that weren't scheduled, sitting Marcus down, closing the door, and spending 20 minutes listing everything Marcus had supposedly done wrong that week. The tone was always reasonable, concerned even, like Daniel was just trying to help Marcus improve. But the message was clear. You're not good enough. You're barely hanging on. You should be grateful I haven't fired you yet. It was the way Daniel would change the shift schedules at the last minute. Marcus would plan his week, arrange his life around his posted schedule, only to come in and find he'd been moved to different days, different hours. When he'd point out that he'd made plans based on the posted schedule, Daniel would shrug. "Operational needs, Marcus. We're not running a country club here. You need to be flexible." It was the way Daniel would publicly correct him for things that weren't wrong. Marcus would be explaining a procedure to a new hire, doing it exactly the way the company manual specified, and Daniel would interrupt. "Actually, that's not quite right. Let me show you the proper way." Then he'd demonstrate the exact same process Marcus had just shown, making it seem like Marcus had been doing it incorrectly. The new hire would look confused. Marcus would feel his face getting hot, and Daniel would walk away satisfied. The breaking point almost came on a Tuesday in March. Marcus had been working a double shift because 2 people had called out sick, and the night crew was already short-staffed. He'd been on his feet for 14 hours. His back ached, his shoulders burned, his hands were cramping from gripping the scanner. But the trucks had to be loaded. The shipments had to go out. That's how the job worked. Around hour 13, Marcus made a mistake. He scanned a pallet bound for Cleveland onto a truck heading to Columbus. Simple error. Happens to everyone, especially after working that long. He caught it himself 5 minutes later, before the truck pulled out, got it moved to the correct vehicle. No harm done. Problem solved. Daniel found out about it anyway. Someone had mentioned it. Or maybe Daniel had been watching the logs. Either way, the next morning, there was a formal written warning in Marcus's file. Marcus read it in the break room, hands shaking. Not from fear, from the sheer injustice of it. He'd worked a voluntary double shift, caught his own error, fixed it before it became a real problem. And he was being written up for it. He went to Daniel's office, knocked on the doorframe. Daniel looked up from his computer, eyebrows raised like he was surprised to see Marcus standing there. He had no idea why Marcus might want to talk. "The write-up," Marcus said. "For yesterday. What about it?" I caught the error myself, fixed it myself. The truck didn't even leave with the wrong pallet. Daniel leaned back in his chair. That familiar posture, that familiar smirk, doesn't matter. Is an error. We have to document these things. It's policy. It was hour 13 of a double shift, Marcus said. His voice was rising slightly. He tried to control it. I was covering for 2 people who called out. And I appreciate that, Daniel said. But his tone said he didn't appreciate anything. But that doesn't give you a free pass to make mistakes. We all have to maintain standards no matter how tired we are. You've never worked a double shift in your life, Marcus said. The room went quiet. Daniel's smile faded. He sat forward, elbows on his desk. Excuse me. Marcus should have backed down, should have apologized, should have recognized he was crossing a line. But something in him wouldn't let it go. In the 6 years I've been here, I've never seen you work past 5 p.m. I've never seen you come in early when we're short-staffed. You show up late, leave early, and spend half your day in your office on personal calls. Daniel stood up slowly. I think you need to be very careful about what you're saying right now. I'm saying it's not fair, Marcus said. I bust my ass for this company. I do everything you ask, everything the job requires, and more. And you write me up for one mistake, while you skate by doing the bare minimum. Has something like this ever happened to you? Tell me in the comments. Get out of my office, Daniel said quietly, before you make this worse for yourself. Marcus left, but he didn't feel better. He felt worse, because he knew he'd just painted a target on his back. And Daniel wasn't the type to forget. The next few weeks were hell. Daniel found reasons to pull Marcus into the office almost daily, questioning his productivity numbers, critiquing his organization methods, suggesting that maybe Marcus wasn't the right fit for the team. The implication was always hanging there, unspoken, but clear. One more screw-up, and you're gone. Marcus started keeping records, not because he had a plan, just because some instinct told him to protect himself. He started saving emails where Daniel asked him to do things that violated company policy. Started noting times and dates when Daniel showed up late or left early. Started keeping copies of the work he did, the improvements he suggested, the problems he solved. He didn't know what he'd do with any of it, but it felt better than doing nothing. The other people on the shift walked on eggshells around him. Nobody wanted to be associated with the guy on Daniel's bad side. It was easier to just keep their distance. Marcus ate lunch alone, took his breaks alone, drove home alone, hands gripping the steering wheel, jaw clenched tight, wondering how much longer he could keep doing this. His girlfriend at the time, Sarah, kept telling him to quit. Just find another job, she'd say. Life's too short to be miserable. But it wasn't that simple. Marcus had bills, he had student loans, he had a car payment and rent, and all the regular expenses of being an adult. And jobs weren't exactly growing on trees, especially good ones. So he stayed, and Daniel kept pushing, and the tension kept building like pressure in a sealed container, looking for any weakness, any crack, any way to explode outward and release. November hit Michigan like a hammer. The temperature dropped 30 degrees in 3 days. The warehouse heating system, already struggling, basically gave up. Everyone wore layers under their company shirts. You could see your breath in the morning until the sun finally warmed the metal roof enough to make a difference. Marcus had been at Patterson Logistics for 6 years, 2 months, and 14 days. Not that he was counting, except he was counting every single day now. Every morning when his alarm went off at 5 a.m., there was a split second where he thought about just not going, about calling out sick, about never going back. But he always went. Because that's what responsible people do. The quarterly review meeting was scheduled for November 8th. These meetings were always tense. Regional management would show up, walk the warehouse, review metrics, question supervisors about performance numbers and efficiency ratings. Daniel always got nervous before these meetings. He'd spend the week leading up to them, making sure everything looked perfect, telling everyone to be on their best behavior, warning them that their jobs depended on impressing the higher-ups. Marcus had been working on a new inventory system for the past 3 months. It was sophisticated, elegant. It used barcode integration with the existing scanner system to automatically flag discrepancies between physical counts and database numbers. It would save the company thousands of hours of manual reconciliation work every year. He'd stayed late dozens of nights perfecting it, tested it, debugged it, made sure it worked flawlessly. He documented everything, created training materials, prepared a presentation explaining how it worked and how much money it would save. And then, the day before the quarterly review, Daniel called him into the office. Marcus walked in to find Daniel standing behind his desk with a printed copy of Marcus's presentation materials spread out in front of him. The office was small, cramped, smelling of old coffee and the plug-in air freshener that was supposed to make it smell like mountain breeze, but mostly just smelled like chemicals. "This inventory system," Daniel said, tapping the papers. "This is good work." Marcus felt a flicker of something. Hope, maybe. Recognition. "Thank you. I think it could really help streamline operations," Daniel said. He picked up the presentation, flipped through a few pages. "I'm going to present this tomorrow at the review meeting." There it was, the familiar pattern. Marcus felt his stomach drop. "I built that system," Marcus said carefully. "I spent 3 months on it." "Working on company time," Daniel said, "using company resources. That makes it company property, which means it falls under my purview as shift supervisor. I worked on it mostly at home, on my own time." Daniel smiled. That shark smile. "Can you prove that?" Marcus couldn't. He'd done some of it at home, but he'd also done a lot of it in the warehouse during slow periods, during breaks, during the dead hours between 2 and 4 a.m. when the trucks were loaded and they were waiting for the morning shipments to arrive. "This is my work," Marcus said. His voice was shaking now. "You can't just take credit for it." "I'm your supervisor," Daniel said. "Everything you do, I oversee. That's literally my job description. And frankly, Marcus, given your recent performance issues, I don't think you're in a position to make demands. If you like stories like this, subscribe for more." "My performance issues?" Marcus's hands were clenched at his sides. "What performance issues?" Daniel opened a drawer, pulled out a file folder. Marcus's name was written on the tab. Daniel opened it, revealing a stack of write-ups, warning notices, performance review forms, all negative, all documenting supposed failures and mistakes and shortcomings. "You've been on a downward trajectory for months," Daniel said. "Honestly, I've been doing you a favor by not recommending termination. But if you're going to be difficult about this, maybe it's time we reconsider your position here." The threat hung in the air. Clear. Unmistakable. Marcus left the office, walked through the warehouse in a daze, went to his locker, pulled out his phone, and just stared at it. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold it steady. He thought about calling HR. But what would he say? My boss is taking credit for my work? They'd ask for proof, ask for documentation. And all the documentation was on company servers that Daniel controlled. He thought about confronting Daniel in front of everyone. But that would just escalate things, make everything worse. So he went back to work, scanned packages, moved pallets, did his job like a robot. While inside, something was changing. Something was hardening. Something was breaking free of the chains he'd wrapped around it. The quarterly review happened the next morning. Marcus wasn't invited. Only supervisors and management attended. He worked his normal shift, loading trucks, while upstairs in the conference room, Daniel presented Marcus's inventory system as his own brilliant innovation. Marcus heard about it from Tommy. "Dude, your boss is upstairs right now showing off some fancy new system he supposedly developed, getting all kinds of praise for it. They're talking about rolling it out company-wide." Marcus nodded. Didn't say anything. What was there to say? But that afternoon, everything changed. The district manager, a woman named Patricia Holbrook, came down to the warehouse floor after the meeting. She wanted to see the inventory system in action. Daniel was with her, playing the proud innovator, explaining how he'd conceptualized and implemented this game-changing solution. They walked up to Marcus's workstation. He was scanning a pallet of automotive parts, his movements mechanical and efficient. "This is Marcus," Daniel said, "one of our hardest workers. Marcus, can you show Miss Holbrook how the new inventory system works?" Marcus looked at Daniel, then at Patricia, then back at Daniel. And he made a decision. "I'd be happy to," Marcus said. "Since I built it." Daniel's face went white. "Marcus, I designed this system over the past 3 months," Marcus continued, his voice steady and clear. "I can walk you through every aspect of it, the integration points, the data structures, the error-handling protocols, all of it." Patricia looked between them, confused. "I thought you developed this, Daniel." "I supervised the development," Daniel said quickly. "Obviously, Marcus helped with the technical implementation, but the concept and oversight were mine." "Really?" Marcus said. He pulled out his phone. "Because I have all my design notes saved in a personal cloud account, time-stamped and dated. I have emails I sent to myself with ideas. I have chat logs where I discuss the technical challenges with programmer friends outside the company. All of it clearly showing this was my independent project." Daniel's jaw was clenched so tight his face was turning red. "You're out of line." "Am I?" Marcus looked at Patricia. "Would you like to see the documentation? The actual development history? Because I can pull it all up right now." For the first time in 6 years, Marcus saw something in Daniel's face that wasn't confidence. It was fear. Patricia looked uncomfortable. "I think we need to have a more detailed conversation about this project. Daniel, why don't we go back to your office?" They left. Marcus went back to scanning packages. His hands were still shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from adrenaline, from the electric rush of finally standing up for himself. 2 hours later, Daniel came back down to the floor. His face was dark, angry. He walked straight up to Marcus and said, loud enough for everyone in the vicinity to hear, "I need to see you in my office, now." Marcus followed him, heart pounding, knowing this was it, knowing he'd just crossed a line there was no coming back from. Daniel closed the office door, turned to face Marcus, and said, "You're fired." The word hung in the air like smoke. Fired. Marcus heard it, but it didn't quite land. Not at first. It was too sudden, too final, too exactly what he'd been waiting for Daniel to say for years, and now that it was actually happening, it felt surreal. "Effective immediately," Daniel continued. His voice was sharp, clipped, the voice of someone who'd been embarrassed and was now reasserting dominance the only way he knew how. "You've violated company protocol by undermining management in front of executive leadership. That's grounds for immediate termination." Marcus stood there. The office felt smaller than usual, the walls closer. He could hear the hum of the computer, the distant beep of forklifts, the muffled sounds of the warehouse continuing its normal operation just beyond the thin door. "I undermined you," Marcus said slowly, "by telling the truth." "You publicly contradicted me in front of the district manager," Daniel said. "You challenged my authority. You tried to take credit for work done under my supervision. Work I did. That you stole. Daniel's face flushed darker. That's it. Get your things. You have 10 minutes to clear out your locker and leave the premises. Security will escort you out if necessary. Marcus laughed. He didn't mean to. It just came out. A short, sharp sound that made Daniel's eyes narrow. Something funny? Daniel demanded. Marcus said. Actually, there is. He pulled out his phone. Daniel watched, confused, as Marcus opened his email app and pulled up a draft message. The message was addressed to Patricia Holbrook, the district manager, CC'd to regional HR, CC'd to the corporate compliance office. The subject line read, Formal complaint, supervisor misconduct and fraud. What is that? Daniel asked. This, Marcus said, is 6 years of documentation. He scrolled through the email. It was long, detailed, methodical. It contained dates, times, and descriptions of every policy violation, every instance of credit theft, every act of harassment and discrimination. Attached to it were screenshots of emails, saved chat logs, photos Marcus had taken of the schedule board showing the last-minute changes, audio recordings. Daniel's eyes widened as he realized what he was seeing. You recorded every conversation we've had in this office for the past 8 months, Marcus said calmly. Michigan is a one-party consent state, by the way. I checked with a lawyer. It's completely legal as long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded. That one person was me. Daniel reached for the phone. Marcus pulled it back, stepped away from the desk. Don't, Marcus said. His voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. You don't? Daniel was stammering. The confident smirk was gone. His face had gone from red to pale. That's invasion of privacy. It's evidence, Marcus said, of systematic workplace harassment, of stolen intellectual property, of fraudulent representation of work product, of time card fraud, actually, since I've got logs of you clocking in when you weren't here and leaving early while still on the clock. What would you have done in that moment? Let me know below. Daniel sat down heavily in his chair. He looked older, suddenly, smaller, like someone had let the air out of him. What do you want? He asked quietly. I don't want anything from you, Marcus said. I'm already fired, right? You made that decision. So now I get to make mine. He tapped the screen. Daniel flinched, but Marcus was just scrolling, showing him more. Pictures of the write-ups in Marcus's file. Marcus had photographed all of them with date stamps. Next to them were the actual performance logs from the company system, which Marcus had requested through a formal records request 2 months ago. The logs showed his productivity numbers were consistently in the top 10% of all warehouse employees. The write-ups described poor performance. The actual data showed excellence. The contradiction was damning. You falsified performance reviews, Marcus said. Created a paper trail of fictional problems to justify stealing my work and threatening my job. That's actionable fraud. I was going to give you credit, Daniel said desperately. Eventually, after the rollout went smoothly, I was going to tell Patricia it was a collaborative effort. You're lying, Marcus said. You've never given me credit for anything. Not once in 6 years. Daniel stood up, came around the desk. His hands were raised, palms out, like he was approaching a dangerous animal. Marcus, listen to me. We can work this out. You don't need to send that email. I can fix this. I'll talk to Patricia. Tell her there was a misunderstanding. Get you unfired. We can start fresh. Marcus looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who'd made 6 years of his life miserable, who'd stolen his work, crushed his spirit, made him dread coming to work every single day. This man who'd been so certain of his power, so confident that Marcus would never fight back, that he could just start fresh, Marcus repeated. With you? He pulled out his earbuds from his pocket. Daniel looked confused until Marcus held up his phone, showing that the voice memo app was running. Had been running since they entered the office. "You just admitted to planning to take credit for my work," Marcus said. "That's recorded too, along with the threat of firing me for telling the truth." Daniel looked like he was going to be sick. "I'm going to walk out of this office now," Marcus said, "and I'm going to go to my locker, and I'm going to collect my things, and then I'm going to leave this warehouse for the last time. And what happens after that depends entirely on what you do in the next 10 minutes. See, what does that mean?" Daniel's voice was shaking. "It means," Marcus said, "that I have a decision to make. I can send this email right now, blow up your career, get you investigated, probably fired, maybe even charged with fraud, depending on how serious corporate wants to take it." He paused, watching Daniel's face cycle through expressions: hope, fear, calculation. "Or," Marcus continued, "I cannot send it. I can walk away, take the firing, find another job, move on with my life," Daniel said quickly. "Yes, do that. Walk away. I won't contest your unemployment. I'll give you a neutral reference. We can both just move on." Marcus smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "I said that's what I could do," he said. "I didn't say that's what I'm going to do." He walked to the office door, put his hand on the handle, looked back at Daniel one last time. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus said. "I'm leaving. You're going to stand there and think about whether you feel lucky, whether you think I'm the kind of person who's going to let this go, whether 6 years of your abuse broke me enough that I'll just slink away quietly." He opened the door. The warehouse noise rushed in, normal sounds of a normal workday, scanners beeping, forklifts moving, people calling to each other across the concrete floor. "And then tomorrow morning," Marcus said, "you're going to check your email, and you'll find out exactly what kind of person I actually am." He walked out, left Daniel standing there alone in his office, probably already mentally drafting his resignation letter, probably already thinking about lawyers, probably already realizing that the power dynamic he'd relied on for so long had just completely reversed. Marcus walked through the warehouse. Heads turned. People had seen him go into the office. Everyone knew something had happened. The air felt electric. He got to his locker, started emptying it. Work boots, an extra shirt, a book he'd been reading on lunch breaks, a photo of his dog, small accumulations of 6 years. Tommy approached carefully. "Man, what happened?" Marcus looked at him, considered what to say, settled on the truth. "I just got fired," he said, "for doing my job too well." Word spread fast. By the time Marcus had his box packed, a small crowd had gathered. Lisa, Tommy, a few others. People who'd worked alongside him for years, who'd seen the way Daniel treated him, who'd probably felt relief it was him instead of them. "They can't fire you for that," Lisa said. "That's retaliation." "They can," Marcus said. "They did. But it's okay." "It's not okay," Tommy said. "Daniel's a piece of shit. Everyone knows it." Marcus closed his locker for the last time, picked up his box, started walking toward the exit. The crowd followed. Not intentionally, but people were watching, curious, waiting to see what would happen. Marcus reached the main floor, the loading dock, the big open space where the trucks pulled in, the same space where he'd unloaded his first pallet 6 years ago, where he'd worked doubles and holidays and overtime shifts, where he'd given years of his life to a company that was letting him go without a second thought. Daniel appeared from the office area, came down the stairs quickly. He must have realized what was happening, that Marcus was leaving, that people were watching, that this was becoming a moment. "Marcus!" Daniel called out, his voice trying to sound authoritative, trying to reclaim control. "I said you have 10 minutes. You need to be off the property." Marcus stopped, turned to face him. The entire warehouse had gone quiet. That same eerie silence from the beginning. 37 people. Maybe more now. All watching. "I'm going," Marcus said calmly. "Good," Daniel said. But he didn't sound confident. He sounded nervous, like he was aware this wasn't playing the way he wanted it to. Marcus walked to the edge of the loading dock. The big door was open, showing the parking lot beyond. Cold air rushing in. Rain starting to fall again. November in Michigan. He set his box down, reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone one more time, and then, with everyone watching, with Daniel standing there trying to maintain his authority, Marcus tapped the send button. The email launched into the digital void, to Patricia Holbrook, to HR, to corporate compliance, thousands of words of documented abuse, dozens of pieces of evidence, audio, video, emails, chat logs, performance data. 6 years of receipts. Marcus picked up his box, looked at Daniel one last time. "Tomorrow morning," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "check your email." Then he walked out into the rain. And he didn't look back. The rain was cold. Marcus didn't care. He walked across the parking lot to his truck, a beat-up Ford Ranger that had seen better decades. The box was getting wet. The cardboard was starting to soften. He barely noticed. His hands shook as he fumbled with his keys. Not from cold. Not from fear. From the pure adrenaline of what he'd just done. 6 years of taking it. 6 years of biting his tongue and swallowing his pride. And in one moment, he'd burned it all down. He set the box in the passenger seat. Got in. Closed the door. Sat there in the silence of the truck cab, rain drumming on the roof, breath fogging the windshield. Then he started laughing. Huge, gasping laughs that turned into something else. Relief. Release. Years of pressure escaping all at once. He laughed until his sides hurt, until tears were running down his face, until he couldn't breathe. Then he started the engine and drove away. He didn't go home immediately. Instead, he drove to a coffee shop downtown, the kind with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Ordered a black coffee, sat by the window, watched the rain. His phone buzzed. Text from Tommy. "Dude, what did you do? Daniel looks like he's having a stroke." Marcus smiled. Didn't reply. Another buzz. "Lisa, everyone's talking. Whatever you did, I hope it was worth it." Was it worth it? Marcus had just gotten fired. Threw away 6 years of seniority. Walked away from a steady paycheck in an uncertain economy. Probably burned any chance of getting a reference from Patterson Logistics. Yeah, it was worth it. His phone rang. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. Rang again. Different unknown number. Voicemail again. Then a number he recognized. Patricia Holbrook, the district manager. Marcus answered. "Mr. Torres." Patricia's voice was professional but strained. "I've received your email." "I figured you would," Marcus said. "I'd like you to come back to the facility. We need to discuss this situation." "I was fired," Marcus said. "I'm no longer an employee. I don't think I should be on the property." Silence on the other end. Then, "The termination is being suspended pending investigation." Investigation into what? "Into the allegations in your email, which are extensive." Marcus sipped his coffee. Let her wait. "Mr. Torres, this is serious. If even half of what you've documented is accurate, we have significant compliance issues. I need you to walk me through your evidence." "Is Daniel Reeves present at this conversation?" Marcus asked. "No. He's been asked to leave the facility for the day." That made Marcus smile. "Has he been suspended?" "I can't discuss another employee's status with you." "Then I can't discuss my evidence with you," Marcus said. "Not until I talk to a lawyer." He heard Patricia take a breath. "You're considering legal action?" I'm considering my options, Marcus said. I have documented proof of harassment, fraud, theft of intellectual property, and wrongful termination. So, legal action is definitely on the table. Another pause. What would it take to resolve this internally? If this felt satisfying, subscribe now. Resolve it internally? Marcus repeated. You mean sweep it under the rug? Address the issues properly through appropriate channels, without this becoming a costly legal battle that helps no one. Marcus set his coffee down, looked out the window at the rain, thought about what he wanted. What would actually make this right? Full reinstatement, he said, with back pay for any time I miss. Removal of all false write-ups from my file. Full credit for the inventory system I developed in writing, with appropriate compensation. And Daniel Reeves no longer in any supervisory position over me or anyone else. That's a significant ask, Patricia said. It's a fraction of what I could get in court, Marcus said. And you know it. I need to review the evidence first. Make sure your claims are substantiated. They are, Marcus said. Every single one. I spent months making sure of it. Then you'll need to meet with me and HR. Today, if possible. Marcus considered. Part of him wanted to just say no, to let the lawyers handle it, to make Patterson Logistics pay, both literally and figuratively, for 6 years of hell. But another part of him knew that a legal battle would take years, would consume his life, would turn into discovery and depositions and stress and uncertainty. And at the end of it, even if he won, even if he got a settlement, would it really feel like victory? I'll come in tomorrow, Marcus said. 9 a.m. with a lawyer. We'll go through everything. But I want one thing clear right now. What's that? I'm not the one who should be scared. I didn't do anything wrong. I did my job. I did it well. And I documented everything because I knew eventually this would happen. So when I walk back into that building tomorrow, it's not as someone asking for mercy. It's as someone who has all the cards. Understood? Understood, Patricia said quietly. They hung up. Marcus sat there for a while longer, finished his coffee, watched people hurrying through the rain, going about their lives, completely unaware that in a warehouse across town, an entire hierarchy was collapsing. His phone buzzed again. Email notification. He opened it. It was from Daniel Reeves's personal email account. The subject line was empty. The body was 2 words, please call. Marcus deleted it. Another email. From Tommy. Subject, holy shit, dude. The email just contained a link to the company's internal message board. Marcus clicked it. The board was exploding. People talking about Daniel being escorted out. Speculation about what had happened. Someone had apparently overheard part of Patricia's conversation with corporate. The rumor mill was in full swing, and in the middle of it all, multiple people were saying some version of the same thing. Good. That guy was an asshole. Marcus closed his phone, paid for his coffee, left a generous tip, walked back out into the rain. He drove home. His apartment was small, 1 bedroom, efficient, clean, the kind of place you live in when you're waiting for your real life to start. He'd been waiting 6 years. Maybe he was done waiting. He made himself dinner, nothing fancy. Pasta with jarred sauce. But he ate it slowly, tasting it instead of shoveling it down while stressing about tomorrow's shift. He watched a movie, something stupid and funny that he'd seen before. Laughed at the jokes. Didn't think about work. Around 10 p.m., his phone rang again. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But something made him pick up. Is this Marcus Torres? A woman's voice. Professional? Unfamiliar? Who's asking? My name is Jennifer Chen. I'm a reporter with the Regional Business Journal. I heard about a situation at Patterson Logistics, alleged supervisor misconduct and employee retaliation. I was hoping you might be willing to talk about it. Marcus almost laughed. How did you even get this story? I have sources in the industry. This is what I cover. Workplace issues, labor disputes. And from what I'm hearing, this might be a significant case. No comment, Marcus said. I understand you might be cautious, Jennifer said. But this is an opportunity to tell your side, to make sure the public understands what happened. What happened, Marcus said, is between me, Patterson Logistics, and possibly their lawyers. I'm not interested in trying this in the press. Fair enough. But if you change your mind, here's my card. She rattled off an email address and phone number. Marcus didn't write them down. After he hung up, he thought about it. About going public. About making Daniel's name known. About warning other potential employees what they were getting into. But that wasn't what this was about. This wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about justice. About standing up. About refusing to be a victim anymore. The rain kept falling. Marcus lay in bed, listening to it hit the window, thinking about tomorrow. About walking back into that warehouse. About facing Patricia and HR and whoever else would be there. About sitting across from them with his lawyer and his evidence, and finally, being the one with power. He thought about Daniel, probably at home right now, probably not sleeping, probably terrified of what was coming. Good. Marcus fell asleep, smiling. The meeting happened in the main conference room on the second floor. The room Patterson Logistics used for quarterly reviews and important client visits. Marcus had never actually been inside it before. 6 years working there, and he'd never rated a spot in the good conference room. He walked in at 9 a.m. sharp with his lawyer, a woman named Rebecca Walsh, who specialized in employment law. She was mid-50s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of calm demeanor that comes from having seen everything twice. Patricia Holbrook was there. The regional HR director, a man named Stuart Campbell, a woman from corporate legal whose name Marcus didn't catch, and, conspicuously absent, Daniel Reeves. They sat. Rebecca spread out her materials, Marcus's documented evidence, organized chronologically in a thick binder, his laptop with the audio files queued up, printed emails, performance logs, the whole arsenal he'd been quietly assembling for months. Before we begin, Rebecca said, I want to establish some ground rules. My client is here in good faith to discuss resolution, but he's under no obligation to participate in any investigation without proper protections. So let's be clear about what we're discussing. Patricia nodded. We've reviewed the initial evidence Mr. Torres provided. We're treating this as a serious compliance matter. Our goal is to understand what happened and take appropriate corrective action. Your goal, Rebecca said, should be to make my client whole. He was subjected to systematic harassment, had his work stolen, and was wrongfully terminated for reporting misconduct. Those are actionable claims under state and federal law. Stewart from HR shifted in his seat. We're not admitting to any wrongdoing at this point. You don't have to admit anything, Rebecca said. The evidence speaks for itself. She opened the binder, started walking them through it. The timeline of abuse, the stolen projects, the falsified write-ups, the audio recordings of Daniel's threats and admissions. Marcus watched their faces as they listened, watched the reality sink in. She said. This wasn't a disgruntled employee making vague accusations. This was documented, time-stamped, recorded proof of systematic misconduct. The meeting lasted 4 hours. They broke for lunch, came back, kept going. By 3 p.m. they'd reached a tentative agreement. Marcus would be reinstated, full back pay, all negative documentation removed from his file, formal written credit for the inventory system, along with a bonus payment of $15,000 for its development. And Daniel Reeves would be terminated effective immediately. We've already asked for his resignation, Patricia said quietly. He submitted it this morning. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Not quite satisfaction. Something else. Vindication, maybe. Or just the simple relief of being believed. "There's one more thing," Rebecca said. "My client wants a written recommendation, acknowledging his contributions and confirming that he left in good standing. If he's being reinstated, he's not leaving," Stewart said. "He might not want to stay," Rebecca countered, "after everything that's happened, and he shouldn't be penalized for that choice." They agreed, drew up the documents, Marcus signed them, shook hands, walked out of the building feeling lighter than he had in years. He drove to the coffee shop again, same seat by the window, ordered the same black coffee. His phone buzzed, text from Tommy. "Reeves is gone, actually gone. Security cleaned out his office. WTF happened?" Marcus replied, "Justice." Another text. "Lisa, heard you're coming back? Is that true?" He thought about it. Was he coming back? Did he want to work at Patterson Logistics after everything? The money was settled. The record was cleared. Daniel was gone. He could walk back in tomorrow and reclaim his job. But did he want to? Over the next week, Marcus thought about it a lot. He'd been offered his job back. Better than that. He'd been offered his dignity back. The company had formally acknowledged that he was right, that he'd been wronged, that they were sorry. But apologies don't erase 6 years. Don't undo the damage. Don't give you back the version of yourself that existed before it all started. Marcus had always planned to move up in the world, to use Patterson Logistics as a stepping stone. But somewhere along the way, Daniel's abuse had convinced him he wasn't good enough, had made him small, had trapped him in a job that was supposed to be temporary. Now, looking at it with clear eyes, Marcus realized something. He didn't need Patterson Logistics. He never had. He'd stayed out of fear, out of inertia, out of the mistaken belief that leaving would be admitting defeat. But he'd already won. The moment he stood up. The moment he stopped accepting the abuse. The moment he walked out with his head high. 2 weeks after the meeting, Marcus called Patricia. "I appreciate everything you've done," he said. "The investigation,